Welcome to Jack's Corner, where conservative values meet national headlines, and truth and reality have a seat at the table. From Louisville, Kentucky, here's your host, Jack Richardson.
Welcome back to Jack's Corner, where truth and reality has a seat at the table. And I want you to remember, it takes more than me and other podcasters to spread the truth. It takes our listeners to become active participants in society by using the information we are providing you so that you can be a force for good. Action is needed and recruits are needed in this fight, and we make it easy for you to be part of the solution. So let's get into the topics today, where I will talk about the Democrat Party that has now revealed that they are okay with communism. And while the Democrat left is in disarray, now is the time to kick them while they're down. Then I move on to suicide by compassion, and then I will talk about America's greatest enemy, higher education. So let's get started. What did I tell you? The Democrat Party is now okay with communists. They finally said what many of us already knew. On Wednesday's PBS NewsHour, DNC Chair Ken Martin responded to New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani, who refused to condemn the phrase global intifada. So what does that mean exactly? Well, globalize the intifada is a phrase used by pro-Palestinian activists calling for aggressive resistance against Israel and those who support Israel. Intifada is, in fact, a call to violence against not just Jews, but institutions or anyone who supports Israel and Jews. Think about this. Out of 8 billion people on the planet, we are expected to accept that 15 million, which is the total world Jewish population, needs to be exterminated. You know, something is really radically wrong with that. If ever the devil had a footprint in this world, it's those who claim that the Jewish people need to be eradicated. And this is now a growing message of the Democrat left. The anti-God, anti-American, anti-freedom, anti-Jew, pro-communism, and everything that God hates party. They are the incarnation of the lie and everything evil. Martin's defense of Mamdani means that the Democrats have completed the inevitable communist evolution. They are now okay with communism and the global terrorism that comes with it, so as to usher it into America. But many of us knew that because much of what they supported over the years was part of the Communist Manifesto. That is in part what an intifada does and accomplishes. As we have seen with all the protests around the country and in our universities, it is painfully evident that the Democrats are in league with the violence, as they refuse to condemn it. That is who they are. The reason they don't condemn it is that with the violence comes chaos. That benefits the Democrat left in seizing and maintaining power. As President Clinton's former chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, once said, "Never let a crisis go to waste." That is communist speak, folks. And don't forget, Hillary Clinton in her 2016 campaign against Donald Trump referred to conservatives, Republicans, and just common sense Americans who supported Trump as deplorable and irredeemable. Folks, you must read and know your history, because that too is straight out of the communist playbook. You see, what you don't know will kill you. And not knowing your history will eventually enslave you. It has killed 120 million over the last 100 years. That is, communism has. Martin deflected from giving a direct answer by saying he doesn't agree with anyone 100% of the time. Yes, DNC Chairman Martin is another cloaked hate America Democrat trying to appear level-headed, claiming to defend democracy while undermining the nation. Martin disingenuously said, "We win by bringing people into that coalition. We should celebrate that as a party and recognize at the end of the day, we're better because of it." That's a Trojan horse. The very enemy of democracy is in the coalition of which Martin speaks. Now, you've heard it from the horse's mouth. The Democrat left now embraces communists running under the Democrat label. There is no room for debate here. It's no longer just a matter of opinion. The Democrat left is an enemy of a free people and consists of anti-constitutionalists. Folks, you must stop toxically tolerating and voting Democrat and those who do. Most don't know this, but to become a citizen, you have to essentially declare that you do not have membership in the Communist Party or another type of totalitarian party. It will and should prevent a foreign national from receiving citizenship in the United States. In those situations, an individual must disclose their membership on a Form N-400, which asks explicitly whether an applicant has ever been associated with the Communist Party or another totalitarian party. This is common sense. Communists are enemies of a free people and they cannot swear an oath to the Constitution. This should go without saying. But the reason behind this part of the application is that a U.S. citizen must adhere to democratic and constitutional principles which are incompatible with totalitarian ideologies. So if being a communist is a bar to citizenship, why is communism not outlawed in the United States? It is antithetical to constitutional government and is treasonous. Now we have a communist running for mayor of New York City, but they use the euphemistic term socialist to cover what they are. But his past statements reveal he is a hardcore Marxist communist. How insane is that? You can thank the Democratic Party. They have been on this trajectory since Woodrow Wilson, who hated the Constitution and was a devout racist to boot. It is time to start defining them in the minds of Americans as the Communist Party of America. It is time to start using words that are actually descriptive for a change, not deceptive. There is nothing democratic about the Democrat Party. We must start a movement against the Democrat Party as a whole, as their membership never defects from their communist mission. They all vote in unison. Think about that. They never depart from their leadership. They all vote in unison against American interest and the Constitution. The cry from normal, red-blooded, common-sense Americans should be for the dissolution of the Democrat Party, as well as a call for the passage of legislation outlawing communism and its euphemistic cousin socialism. They are both one and the same and a threat to the American way of life and our Constitution. We no longer live in an age of reason, but of psychosis. We have departed from truth and reality. It's time to fight back against the insanity. So I recently published another article entitled, "Yes, Kick 'em While They're Down." This is no time to let up on the Democrat left, who nearly destroyed the country in 2024. This is the first time in 30 years that the Republicans, conservatives, and just regular common sense Americans have been in a position to seriously challenge the Democrat communists. God has shown us mercy that is not deserved, as many good people just sat around and, by their silence, surrendered to what was evil. Now, I don't want the listener to get the wrong impression that this war between good and evil is won. We are on a roll right now, but we are still in the ditch. We are anything but out of trouble. In fact, America's systemic psychosis, which, by the way, is the name of my book, is so widespread and the infection so deep that every means we can muster to fight it must be employed. I've never known a time in my life where it was truly revealed that the devil does have horns and a tail, and we're living that now. Every day now, the Democrat left spews their hatred, lies, and deceit. And what is so profound is that they make no attempt to disguise their agenda. They have lost the ability to blush or pretend to be civil. They tell you how perverse they are and how much they hate America, and they are now promoting violence. The Democrat left has a communist running for mayor of New York City. They are ambushing ICE agents, and some have in open and recorded forums called for the deconstruction of the United States. They are calling for open rebellion and have slandered over 77 million Americans as fascist. The Democrat left has embraced anti-Semitism and increasingly opposes any aid to Israel. They voted for the largest tax increase in history, supported open borders, and violently opposed deporting criminal aliens. Literally everything wrong, bad, evil, anti-human, and psychotic act they support. It used to be that I had to prove my case with strong circumstantial evidence, but no more. The Democrat left is admitting it. They stare you in the face, lie to you knowing that you know that what they're saying is a lie, and then dare you to do something about it. It's utterly profound. COVID is nowhere the pandemic that the mental illness of the Democrat left is. With the exception of just a handful of states, the Republican Party registration is exploding in the thousands, while at the same time the Democrat registration is declining by the thousands per month. 10 years ago, the Democrat registration in Pennsylvania was 1 million over the Republicans. And next year, the Republicans will outnumber them. And 10 years ago in Florida, the numbers were the same. But now Republicans outnumber the Democrats by well over 1 million. Our 5 largest cities have been destroyed and are not likely to recover, as all the wealth and tax base is leaving due to the communist influence after 50 years of Democrat dominance. They are now citadels of corruption, atheists, and communist indoctrinated voters. This is the fate under every communist regime, and New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, San Francisco, and Los Angeles are doomed, and they want to spread that disease to the rest of our country. Whereas in the past, the offenses, the absurdity, and irrational claims of the left's proposals were random, and it took time to thread the needle to establish their agenda and how dangerous it was to even trust them, they now embrace their cognitive dissonance and every foul thing as if it were a virtue. Evidence is no longer needed that the Democrat left is an existential enemy and threat to humanity. They parade it around every day and on the nightly news in a most Kafkaesque way. Well, thanks to Trump and the marvelous team he has assembled around him, the revelations of how monstrous and dangerous the left is are on display every night. In every city, you're seeing the violence. But more so, how they have become disoriented and panicked, that they have lost their grip for now. Their fever dream of totalitarian, bureaucratic, dystopian country that they permanently control is now in jeopardy. And their call to violence only demonstrates who they have always been. This is why it is imperative and essential that we destroy the monster while it is exposed, confused, and down. Folks, you don't put out a fire 3/4 of the way. You put it out the whole way. And now we're at that point where we have got to finally take care of the Democrat Party for what it is. It's a communist, sympathetic organization. There is no counting to 3. The moment is now. And as Senator Barry Goldwater is famous for quoting and saying, extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice, and moderation in pursuit of justice is no virtue. Now is the time to remove all stops. It's all hands on deck and full throttle ahead. Every means and measure must be employed to expose, humiliate, and delegitimize and remove the evil of the Democrat left from power as they act in unison and should be ousted accordingly. Ask no quarter and give no quarter. Don't miss this opportunity to pull back from the precipice upon which they had us, and as quickly as possible restore stability and all that was good in this country. So yes, kick them while they're down and never forget how close they came to destroying you and America. There is still much to be done, but the unraveling of the left has started. So it's time to tug on that thread with all your might to unravel the rest of them in any way and every way you can. Well, how did we get here? In part, it was because we were duped by the fake compassion of the left that was used as a tool to lull us and shame us into doing their bidding. I call it in an article, suicide compassion. Many were naive, but none more than the Christian community. There is no want for naivety among the Christian community. To steal a phrase from the movie Forrest Gump, who famously said, "Stupid is what stupid does," well, likewise, so many Christians wear a false compassion on their sleeves, automatically genuflecting to any emotional appeal, given no thought to basically how it squares with Scripture or with reality. So Christian is what Christian does, and stupid naivety is not one of them. They treat Scripture, coupled with their modern-day false prophets, as a suicide pact and psychologically divorced from reality, which is a departure from the truth itself. That will not set you free, but enslave you at best, and at worst, kill you. A recent piece in the Louisville Courier-Journal treated a video of Suleiman Akbarzada, a Muslim immigrant from Afghanistan who proclaimed he was married in a church and studied Christianity with apparently nothing more to prove his claims. The soft puff piece went into how he was just like the rest of us, raising 2 children here and was concerned about other immigrants, neither designated as Christian or Islam. It was designed to avoid the hard questions and appeal to emotion rather than engage in cognitive analysis. It was and has been the design of the left to flood the country with immigrants prone to the deceptive practices and promises of the left so as to gain their votes and to permanently change the electoral process, giving permanent power to the left and the Democrat Party. This would deny the citizens of this country any choice, as in the countries from which all the illegal immigrants came, where there was no freedom, since they voted in the socialists who oppress them. Unfortunately, they will repeat the same mistakes here, but to the dire detriment of our country and the freedoms we have enjoyed for so many years. Remember the verse in the Bible where it says, "There are those who, like dogs, will go back to their vomit." Well, there are those who will repeatedly make the same mistakes over and over, and that is what the Democrats plan on. Misplaced and manipulated compassion can be a deadly tool in the hands of those who are disingenuous and play upon the emotions of well-meaning but ignorant and naive people. Do not be fooled by the bleeding hearts that deceive. Their tongues speak sweet words while their hearts are full of evil and corrupt agendas. Well, this leads me to my next topic, America's greatest enemy, higher education. You got to stop paying for child abuse. So many Americans have turned a blind eye to the mental abuse their kids are subjected to from their schools and teachers. Yes, some Christians did mobilize and start homeschooling, but isn't that really a retreat as opposed to exposing and expunging perverse educators from the classroom? There is no accountability anymore. We all too often retreat as opposed to fighting and removing the cancer. Too many don't want the inconvenience of confronting what is wrong and evil, so they allow evil to have its space. The problem is, evil will not stay in its lane. It can't exist where there is light and truth. So you must ask yourself the tough question, to what extent are you complicit in the destruction of the next generation and the downfall of the country? In the recent Supreme Court decision in Mahmoud et al. Versus Taylor, Maryland parents wanted to keep their children out of lessons involving books with LGBTQ content, porn to be concise. Well, let me ask you this. Why did anyone have to go to the Supreme Court to protect their kids from deviance? Why were these reprobates in the school districts allowed to hold on to a job? Silence is surrender, folks. And all too many surrendered as they didn't want to confront evil. More importantly, while common sense people, not just Christians, don't want their children exposed to the trash that teachers are pushing on the kids, what about those who don't opt out or cannot? Think about this. Once your country turns into Sodom and Gomorrah, and basically they'll be voters, do you think you will really survive long afterwards? Even if your kids are educated properly and graduate? You won't. Where is your deductive reasoning? You can't shrink back into your little corner of the world and not think that these psychos aren't going to pursue you. Friends, the godless left want your kids. They believe you are nothing more than a petri dish and that your children are really the state's. Remember when Hillary Clinton came up with that not-so-cute phrase and book that it takes a village to raise a kid? Well, as someone said, it takes a village idiot to believe that. And we could fill several countries with the idiots we have in America. But it's more than that, folks. This is part of the first draft of the Communist Manifesto under Hegel, where the first step is to destroy the family, as the family unit is the most effective governing unit. That got in the way of communists taking over, and this is what we see in our schools and universities today. They are infested with the communist ideology, and most brain-dead teachers go along with it. As the communist dictator of Russia, Lenin, said, "Give me a child until he's 5, and the seeds I plant will never be uprooted." Teachers and professors today indoctrinate your children that America is bad. These people belong in jail for child abuse and fraud. These frauds believe that the state is the rightful parent of your children. But the left will convince you this is about tolerance. They are liars. In 1925, the Supreme Court clearly stated in the case of Pierce versus Society of Sisters, in an Oregon case, that the child is not the mere creature of the state and that the parents had a right to send their children to religious schools. Here again, you had Oregon, that state of misfits and mental degenerates who wanted to end private and religious education altogether. They wanted that so they could reorient your children morally and, as we have seen, confuse kids as to their sexual orientation. Don't think that this is done by democratically elected school boards, although they are as demonic as the rest, but they will push what unelected curriculum designers and ideological consultants push upon the schools. You see, the real core of evil is hidden, so they don't have to be held accountable. The curriculum designers are the root of the weed that never gets dug up. The teachers are just the nasty flower on top. They have absconded with the glossary and use terms like inclusivity, which really means exclusion of the parent's authority and exclusion of dissent. They know that kids are blank slates that they can imprint upon and create recruits which end up in the riots that we see in the universities where the kids are protesting in favor of the terrorist group Hamas. If your kid is doing that, you need to yank them out of that school quickly. Then go after the abusers. Don't just cut down the flower, go after the root. As Dr. Thomas Sowell so eloquently summarized, the vision of the corrupt anointed elites believe, first of all, that ordinary people and parents are too unenlightened to know what is best for their children. Secondly, that the elites, through their fake, false compassion, are morally superior and entitled to override the decisions of others. And finally, that society must be reshaped even by force to conform to their vision of social justice. These people are evil, demonic, and straight from hell. Friends, these are the godless, God-hating, hedonist reprobates that are society destroyers and all that is good. These are the real enemies of America, and you must go after the root. Rout these people out. Hold them accountable. Frankly, I would offshore them permanently if I could. Once again, as I frequently do, I ask you, what is the one thing you will and can do in the next week and the weeks ahead to make a difference, to take back your country? Make a plan. Dedicate yourself to 30 minutes a day to think deeply as to how you can make a difference and the actions that you can take. Well, folks, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. And don't forget to check out hundreds of articles on bluegrasschronicles.com website archives for more content. Until later, I'm Jack Richardson for Jack's Corner.